It's Monday evening. It's the review show on the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons, the DeeBrief. I'm your host, Adrian Horton, and joining me, I've got a nickname for you, mate, and I think you're gonna like it because you were someone that was big on this player 3 or 4 months ago. But how are you, Cam Burt?
I am very good, and I'm looking forward to what this nickname is.
Are you intrigued? I'm just going to call you Culls because you've come in from, well, you've come from the big pod to the small pod. Let's be honest about that. The Casey report onto the review show. But in all seriousness, it's like you've had to bide your time. We've been chatting Casey all season on the Casey report, and then you got a Guernsey a couple of weeks back on the main show. And then by popular demand, you've come back again this week, and hey, you might get another Guernsey next week. And it feels eerily similar to one Jai Cully, just your ascension into the DeeBrief main show. Do you reckon that's fair enough?
Yeah, look, I called it a long time ago that he was a superstar. He's proved me right, and we'll roll with that.
You did well, mate. Honestly, I was, again, thinking of you on the weekend, and it's probably a really good place to start because you were bigging up Jai Cully months ago. I think it was probably May, to be honest, when you saw him down at Casey and you were impressed with what you saw. And this is what it's all about now. There's 3 games left. It feels like a bit of a dark cloud is starting to somewhat disappear from the football club. There is still a lot of water to go under the bridge. That's not disrespectful to Simon, but I think the writing was on the wall. He's gone now. We played with some freedom and we're looking for some shoots of positivity. We're looking for something to hang our hat on going into 2026. And I tell you what, Culls, Jai was very good, wasn't he?
Yeah, I reckon he's slotted in, all jokes aside, I actually think he's slotted in really well the last couple of weeks. He played well against the Eagles, but I'm pretty sure I could get 15 or 16 kicks against the Eagles. But he genuinely, he looks... He fits in. I love that he really plays for the jumper. So that was good when he clutched at that against the Weagles and kicked another one on the weekend. I reckon he'll fit in. I think he might be in some future calculations.
I think so as well. I was talking to the old man about it. Mum and Dad came down to see their granddaughter. My little brother just recently had his first child. So a big shout out to Chris, who actually doesn't listen to the podcast, which is pretty funny because, of course, Scotty, my older brother, is involved in the podcast. But Chris is a diehard Demon and would have loved him to have been at the footy yesterday, but he's taking care of the newborn, of course. And so it was a good day out with Dad. And none of my regulars were really there. Billy Anderson was there, which was great to see him, and a couple of other boys in standing room. But it was just good to hang out with the old man and have a beer with him and chat about the evolution of this team. And Dad came to me at halftime when we ducked in and had a quick schooner together, and he said, Jai Cully, loved the size of him. And I couldn't agree with him more. I think the size is what stood out to me yesterday. I didn't get a chance to get to the Eagles game, and I haven't been down to the wind turbine, just probably due to the little ones and whatnot. But I haven't actually seen him up close and personal, Cam Burt. So I was super impressed, particularly that first half. I love the way that he cracks in as well. He was coming off the line and getting involved in some of the few clearances that we won on the day. I thought that was impressive. And he's got a good composure to him. And I think that's something you've been big on. His kicking skills generally pretty clean. And it's certainly something that this team has lacked throughout the season. So if there are some positives, and there's definitely more that we're going to go through, and I think we need to be upbeat about what's to come. Yes, we lost another close one, and we could delve into that if we wanted to, but the reality is we've lost far too many close ones over the last few years. We know that's an issue. That's something that the new coach will need to address when he comes in. But the Jai Cullys of this world putting their hand up for a round 1 2026 starting spot, it's a genuine possibility for me.
Oh, 100%, mate. I was really, really impressed. I thought Chappie did a good job of throwing the magnets around a little bit as well. And a couple of clearance stoppage work with a midfield is Cully. It was Windsor. It was Cozzy. Man, Cully had 5 clearances, which was a demon high. So, and he didn't play the whole day in the gut. So, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago on the Casey report that the Melbourne boys thought that it was weird that Casey were playing him on the wing because he's not a winger; he's a genuine midfielder. So it throws a spanner in the works with how many midfielders we've got. But yeah, no, I think he's got a future at the Melbourne Football Club, and he certainly wants that to be the way he was grabbing at his jumper the other week.
Definitely. The other thing as well, Tom Marquezani standing with him for the first half, and Marker and I had a funny little gag about that. Well, how many blokes out there actually supported the club? And one is son of Todd. So he had no choice, Jack Viney. And the only other one that we could pick out was Jai Cully. So it's funny how it feels like there was a generation that got skipped just purely because of how shit we were, or how shit we've been at different junctures since 1965. But it's really nice and refreshing to have someone out there that actually bleeds the red and blue. And he made another big step forward, I think, in forging a Melbourne Football Club career for himself. So that was definitely something that was super positive to come out of yesterday. A few of the other things as well, maybe we go to Caleb Windsor. Now, interesting the narrative around him. A lot of naysayers coming out of the woodwork on the forums and the socials yesterday speaking about his deplorable kicking. Well, Cozzy's kicking yesterday was deplorable as well. Christian Petrarca looked quite disinterested. I think we can talk about those two players later, and maybe it's the Goody effect of him leaving. They're a little bit sad and they're a little bit down in the dumps, and I can understand that. There are going to be some players in this lineup who probably feel the effects of Simon Goodwin going more than others. But I think for me, I actually looked at it differently with Caleb Windsor. I love the fact that we persisted with him again through the middle. I thought that was great. We've got to change it up. And I love the bursts of speed and just running through contests and breaking lines. And it's something that I think we desperately need. Connor Rosé is someone that springs to mind that does that really well. You could probably throw a blanket over all of those Port Adelaide midfielders, really.
Oh, man, they do us in every time, those two.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, I've spoken about Fremantle and the way that Caleb Sarong and Hayden Young and Andrew Brayshaw seem to just burst away from contests against us and do a number on us. So Ed Richards was probably a good example of someone yesterday that did that to us at will and was definitely the best player on the ground for mine. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. But I see Caleb Windsor stepping up and stepping into that midfield role on a regular basis, potentially from next year onwards. Does he need to build up? Maybe, probably. And the other thing is clearly he needs to work on his kicking. And this is going to sound so fucking basic, but he almost just needs to slow down a little bit before he disposes of it. Just compose yourself, slow down. He runs at breakneck speed, and I think that's almost why we see him disposing of the ball the way he did yesterday at different times. There were quite a few turnovers from Caleb yesterday, but I think the glass half full in me says that there's definitely enough to work with in terms of a midfield role where he can flourish at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the naysayers are saying that he needs to bulk up, but that's what we're trying to move away from a little bit, is all these inside midfield balls that butcher the ball. So if he can take away the butcher the ball part, he did have a couple yesterday. I think he needs a left foot, because he tries all of these outside of the foot on the right all the time, and they very rarely pay off. So he needs to work on both sides of the body. But I think we're forgetting the kid's still 19, 20 years old. He's still got so much footy to play and to learn. And but that him yesterday in the midfield was really. I thought there was some real moments where I was like, oh shit, this could be his future. I saw him as a wingman. Maybe he's a midfielder. And then, his counterpart in Harvey Langford out there as well was just the future of this club. It can really be in very good hands.
Yeah, so the midfield and the CBAs, a few people disappointed yesterday that it was the usual suspects rolling through there. Track actually didn't attend as many as he has been in recent weeks. He's playing more a high half forward role at times. So does it beg the question in the last two games, Canberra, why don't we just look at, I think Windsor's gone with a hammy, the way he came off the field towards the end. Why not now put a Harvey Langford in there through the middle for maybe a third of the game? Give him an opportunity. Judd McVee's potentially the other one. And then the person that we were speaking about off the top, Culls, your nickname, Jai, get him in there. Why not? Maybe give him a crack at it. Or they might just simply go, nah, we'll keep him out in the wing. It's safe. It's predictable. He knows how to play that role. But I saw someone that really enjoyed the willingness of getting it out of the clinches, Jai Cully. So I also see an opportunity to potentially roll him through there. What are your thoughts on that midfield mix and maybe getting a little bit more of a freshen up in the last two games?
Yeah, I think it's tough to say because obviously Chappie's not going to be the one pulling the strings next year. But I think, we saw Jake Bowie thrown ahead of the ball late. We saw Riv get a little bit. I thought Riv was really good yesterday, and his ball use could really be. He had one absolute stinker, but we won't talk about that.
No, that's terrible.
But mate, why not throw him around a bit? We know we've seen the best and the worst of Track, Clary, and Viney. You see it, the best and the worst of them in one game. We know exactly what that is. I'd love to see Track play that Isaac Heaney kind of hybrid half forward role and stay there for the rest of the year. Honestly, we know exactly what he can do. So I'd love to see McVee. I'd love to see Windsor if he's not hurt. You'd love to see Riv and Langford and throw some kids in there. We're a really young side, so we've got the kids in the game. Let's just throw the magnets around a little bit.
Max Gawn as well, up forward a couple of times, or more than we've probably often seen him resting forward. Again, I thought it was a nice thing to see from Troy Chaplin. And then if we fast forward to the end of the game, or at least the start of the fourth quarter, I was shocked to see Tommy Sparrow get subbed out. We know that Tommy definitely hasn't had the year that he would have liked. I think a lot of people were expecting and hoping to see him take a big stride forward. You'd have to say that maybe in some respects he's stagnated this year. I think he's crying out for a coach, a new coach that is, and I think he's crying out for some clarity about his role and how we can maximise his talents as a footballer. I was just shocked to see Chaplin pull the trigger on Tommy and give him the sub vest, because I don't think that ever happened under Simon. That's not a knock on Tom, but if the sub vest was going to get given to anyone, I thought it was either him or Kay Chandler, who I also thought was pretty quiet on the day. So it was good to see a move like that made from Chappie, to be honest with you. I thought that was refreshing in itself. And the other refreshing part was Blake Howes came on. He had 5 disposals. He kicked a clutch goal, his first ever goal in AFL footy. It got us back in front. It gave us some hope. And I was impressed with some of the things that I saw from Blake in that last quarter too.
Yeah, look, it pains me to agree with the dragging of Tom Sparrow, but man, he was just nowhere. I think just looking at him, mate, he doesn't know what his role is. He's running around like a little bit of a headless chook. I love the kid. He's a great kid, but I think him and Chin, I think, are desperate for a new voice and a new coach and a new role. And Chin started the year on fire and has been nowhere since. But I was really surprised at Blake Howes being named the sub. It's just such a... He can only play the one position, and thrown behind the ball. If we're behind, I don't understand that. He went and kicked the goal, but he's not going to change the game from a back flank. I just thought that was strange, but man, he came on and he was fantastic. Another one of the Casey boys throughout the year that's toiled away. But I really like Blake Howes, and I've been big on him all year. I really like our stocks down back going forward. And Jed Adams went really well, I thought, in his debut.
Yeah, I thought Jed was good. I was going to say on the substitute of Blake Howes, or making him the sub, I thought you were going to say such a goody move to make him the sub. And it was strange. And I do agree with that. He came on, he played well. So maybe in hindsight, you go, you know what, Chappie? Not bad. Not bad, considering that Blake actually did have an influence on proceedings in the last quarter. But to Jed Adams, it was a real baptism of fire for him. Playing on Aaron Naughton is mental, like absolutely insane. But if you speak about education and what he would have learnt and what he would have got out of that, I think that'll be invaluable for him moving forward. There were times where I thought he showed great composure. I thought positionally pretty good, pretty sound. Norton kicks 4 on him, maybe 3. I don't know if there was a handover at one point with McDonald. Clearly, Disco butchered one in the goal square where he just completely lost Aaron Norton, who then just bobbed up and kicked the easiest goal of his life. I know you could see it. It was etched on Disco's face. He was pretty disappointed with that effort. And in the end, it was only a goal margin. And those moments counted big time in the last quarter. But Jed Adams he was okay. He was okay. I think there's definitely a player there and definitely someone I've seen at Casey level, and you've certainly seen him more than 99.9% of Melbourne supporters doing the Casey report this year. You have been bullish on his prospects, and to see him get a game and know that they'll hopefully persist with him in the last 2. We'll see what happens with Stephen May potentially coming back from suspension. I just think a good experience at the level. Yes, a bloke kicks quite a few goals on him, but we're talking about one of the best forwards in the comp. And given the fact that the 4 premiership points probably aren't as precious as they are at this stage of the season when finals isn't on the cards, I would love to just see us persist with him and give him another crack at it in the last 2. I don't know if we get much out of it, sending him back down to Casey, to be honest with you. And some people might say, nah, fuck it, we want Main because he's better quality. I just think we lose out on an opportunity to potentially get Jed Adams into a confident mindset heading into the preseason.
Yeah, I'd like to take back that he played really well, actually. He was good. He was okay. Baptism of fire, absolutely. Sam Darcy and Aaron Norton's a pretty tough way to start your AFL career for a side that was desperate to win, and we were playing for nothing. But I'm really curious to see what they do with Stephen May. I think Jed will likely get dropped, but as Casey are heading into a finals run as well, almost, he's been a huge part of what Casey have done this year. So although the AFL games are really good to have under his belt, he's also about to play against the best of the best VFL forwards. So it's not worst case scenario, but it would kind of be pointless to bring him in for one game and then drop him again.
They like doing that though. They've done that.
Kynan Brown has been, he loves playing AFL footy.
Yeah, he loves it. Just gets the 2 sub appearances and we haven't seen him since. That's another player. And of course, we'll have to do the Casey report together, mate, and work through what was a big, huge win for them on the weekend, which really sets them up for a thrilling finish to the end of the season, hopefully a top 6 spot for the Casey Demons. So we'll get to that, and we'll probably put that one out tomorrow to the DeeBrief faithful. But coming back to this game, and we'll go through a few more individuals and maybe talk about the way that Melbourne played, particularly the way I thought they scored from the defensive half. The ball movement, I thought it was really impressive. Some of the best we've seen from us probably all year, to be honest with you. And the shackles were off a bit, and you could see that. But the game itself yesterday, it was so enjoyable. And the reason why I say it was enjoyable is because clearly the pressure wasn't there on us as supporters. It was somewhat strange, the dynamic in the ground, because you could tell the Western Bulldogs fans were kind of shitting themselves at different points during the game, especially late in the 3rd quarter. Even when we pegged them back in the 4th quarter, they were thinking, why? How? We've got everything to play for. These blokes don't. But it was a ripping game of footy. And it's very rare that you actually, as a nuffy, and you'd be the same as me, get to go to a game of footy when your team is playing and really immerse yourself in it and enjoy it for what it is, because you're so fixated on the outcome and the result and getting the victory, and your nerves are jangling and all those things. But yesterday was so carefree. was a great opportunity just to stand there on the MCC wing and just take it all in for what it was. And what it ended up being was game of the round and one of the better games of footy I think we've seen in a few weeks, to be honest with you. And that's what a lot of opposition supporters were saying to me today when I had a chat to them about the game. They thought it was an absolute ripper. It was an absolute ripper. And for a moment there, Cam, it felt nice knowing how much the Doggies fans were shitting it. Now, of course, when they got back in front, they were going bananas and a few people were saying, oh my God, look at the carry on from the Bulldogs fans. Oh, you should have smashed us, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, if the shoe was on the other foot and we put ourselves into that position, we'd be carrying on like pork chops as well, because that's what it's all about. It's all about winning. It's all about staying in touch. It's all about giving yourself an opportunity to play final. So if the shoe was on the other foot, I guarantee we would be doing the same thing. But I just wanted to make mention and just take a step back from talking about individuals. It was such a good game of footy and such a beautiful day out at the footy with the sun.
Yeah, I was on there's a members section, M13, M14, where I sit, and we were sitting in the sun, mate. I was sweating bullets. It was hot on that side, getting pumped by the sun, but it was, yeah, I think you nailed it. It was actually a really just enjoyable game of football. We went in knowing it didn't matter. The result didn't matter whatsoever. I thought we were going to get done by a hell of a lot more than we did get done by. Took the lead. I actually saw a neutral fan on Twitter, and I didn't take note of what his at was, so apologies, but he said, he was really impressed with the noise coming from the Melbourne supporters on the day. I thought we were really loud. There was some Melbourne chants coming from the wings. We need to work on that, by the way. But it was just a really cool feeling. Like, the game meant nothing to us. It was about blooding a lot of kids and seeing what they can do and just enjoying how good Jai Cully is.
Yes, it was good. It was a good day out. Doggies got the chocolates. They got some class in that outfit, it must be said. And Sam Darcy, who is a unbelievable footballer, such a special talent. And I'm not going to lie, I went to the footy to watch guys like him for sure. But Tom McDonald, mate, tip your hat to T-Mac. I thought he was one of our better contributors on the day. I had him, Gorn, Petty, who we can speak about, and Rivdog. I had them all as 8s out of 10 in my player ratings. I thought they are our 4 best players on the day. And Tom McDonald, it's a tough job coming up against someone of Sam Darcy's caliber, and to restrict him to only 2 goals, knowing that one of the goals was just a bit of a Joe the Goose out the back, very lucky. That was super impressive. There were a few people around me before the game started going, oh, fuck, who's on Sam Darcy? And a few people not backing in T-Mac. And I thought to myself, nah, I'm going to back T-Mac in. T-Mac has been so good for us this year. He missed a large chunk of the season for God knows what reason. I can't believe that actually happened, because when he's coming up against some of the most formidable opponents in the league and he's doing what he did yesterday and he's curtailing their impact, it beggars belief knowing that he actually spent as much time as he did down at Casey. It's crazy. Like, you were all over that.
And I had no idea how he got dropped, why he got dropped. It was just perplexing in a really big way. And then he comes back and he's been probably our best defender since. Yesterday was unreal. Like, Sam Darcy has everyone losing their minds every week, and he gets wrapped up pretty well by well, how old's T-Mac? 34, 35 year old?
32, 33. I have to
Is he
look
that
that up.
young? Yeah, okay. But even then, mate, he was dropped and written off, and yeah, he's 32. You're right.
Yeah.
Dropped and written off and sent down to the nether regions of Cranbourne. Just comes back, and he was really solid on one of the league's most dynamic forwards. So he's a huge one for what we do with, for me, next season, because you've got a lot of tall backs. I just think he's got so much footy left to give. He's still so solid and can be one of those guys that really helps a Disco, a Jed, just all Blake Howes even, randomly, he's one of our better disposers of the ball out of the back line, and he used to make us all really nervous every time he had the pill in his hands 10 years ago. But T-Mac is just a consummate professional, and you have to start wondering how much of that pure meat diet is keeping him up with the best of the best.
Oh, keep him around for sure. I think he's got another couple of years in him. Like I reckon he's looking the goods. He's looking fit. He's looking healthy. He's a simple country fella, probably like myself. I still claim to be a country fella. It's pathetic for me. But he definitely, to me, looks like someone that could easily get 2 years out of him. I think a big part of that as well is because he's gotten over a couple of those crippling injuries that he was carrying. If memory serves me right, he had a foot injury that would always resurface. I think that's, like, off the top of my head, I think that's correct. Maybe a similar thing to what Jack Viney had. He had the plantar fascia, which would affect his chances of running out every week. And he was very injury interrupted at one point, Jack. And it was a similar thing for Tom McDonald. I think that is past. And you can see that in his footy, his mobility, the way that he's jumping at the ball. I don't think there's any reason why the guy can't at least give us another couple of years if he keeps himself fit. And we've seen it in the modern game now. We've got blokes that are playing 33, 34, 35, 36 and still putting in serious effort. And I think Tom McDonald could be another one of those. So I was so happy with his game yesterday, and I'm more than happy to keep him around. Harrison Petty, big pets. Maybe he's the answer forward, Camber.
Don't you start. But credit, yesterday he was fantastic, mate, and I
Wasn't he?
was just shaking my head because I don't think he's the answer up forward. We've got a huge sample size of that, but he was phenomenal yesterday.
He was good. He had 15 disposals. He kicked 2 goals. He had 2 goal assists. I don't think he gets credited for the palm to disco in the goal square either. So you put him down for 3 goal assists. He's directly contributed to 5 of our 15 goals, and he took 7 marks and 2 of them were contested. I said it on my player ratings. I think it's the best game we've seen from Harrison Petty since the Geelong clash last year when the Cats were coming in and they were undefeated. We knocked them off, and he ended up getting the 3 Brownlow votes, which was the most wild thing when I was watching.
Popped a laugh at the table, that one at the Brownlow.
It was hilarious, but he was unbelievable that night, and I think this was one of his better performances as well. I actually haven't seen the Coaches Association votes, so I might get them up while we're talking. There was a part of me that thought I wouldn't be surprised if he actually got some votes. Maybe he didn't. We'll see how that goes once I got it up. But all in all, I was super impressed. Now, back to your point. Do we want a Harrison Petty in front of the ball next year? You're shaking your head. No, I don't either. I want him to revert back to the back line where I think he can do his best work. It would be hilarious, though, Cambert, in this 3-game mini-season under Troy Chaplin, if you put in another couple of performances like that, because then does it give the new coach coming in potentially the flexibility to use him as a swingman or maybe persist with him up forward? I hope the answer is no, because I'm so firm on him going back behind the ball. But yesterday, if he were able to replicate that on a more consistent basis, are we actually sitting here talking about one of the key pillars of our forward line? That's probably the question I wanted to ask you when we came on.
It's a resounding no from me, dog. He was unreal yesterday. I'll give him full credit. He was great in helping us with regain some field position and slowing down the play, and he kicked a couple of really good goals. And I don't know if you're allowed to have a celebration though when you kick half a goal a game. His hands, though, could be utilised so well behind the ball as well. It's not just forwards have good hands. We're all lauding Disco for bringing the ball down in the exact same way in the back line that Petty has been in the forward line. So I'm all for Harrison Petty playing for the Melbourne Football Club, but please just at the other end of the ground.
Fair enough. So coaches' votes ended up Ed Richards 10, no surprise. Aaron Naughton was 7, no surprise. Max Gawn got 5, Marcus Bontempelli 4, Tom Liberatore 2, Bailey Dale 1, and Tom McDonald got a vote.
T-Mac.
And T-Mac deserved a vote for sure. I just want to move on to Bailey Fritsch. So Bailey Fritsch yesterday annoyed me. Because Bailey Fritsch, I think, could have been the difference in the game. He had 11 score involvements from his 14 disposals, which I think speaks to the role that he's now playing further up the ground. He's that distributor. He's that connector. And he's hitting the scoreboard. He kicked 2-3 yesterday. But the reason why I'm annoyed, he just left goals out there. He left goals out there. We could have been speaking about a player that kicked 4-1 or 5 straight. And while Aaron Naughton was the difference for the Bulldogs, I thought Bailey Fritsch could have been our match winner. And even though it would be too easy to get so stat-centric, and these games in the grand scheme of things don't mean that much to the Melbourne Football Club, I just wanted to see Deadeye Dick Bailey take a game and say, nah, fuck it, I'm going to win this for my side. And I just, people will say, might think that sounds a little bit harsh, but I just thought he's a little bit lazy yesterday in terms of execution, and I really was hoping that in the wash-up we would look back and we go, far out, Bailey Fritsch, match winner. And that's just where I landed with him yesterday. And again, it sounds harsh because he actually had a really good game and shouldn't get too caught up in the numbers. But those are my expectations of Bailey Fritsch, and I think he's definitely a player that we've seen play much better footy in this back half of the year. The new coach who comes in, just hold this guy to account because he's got all the tools. He's so freaking talented, and we just need to see that consistent output week in, week out, because I think if we get that primo version of Bailey next year, it'll feel like we've almost got a new player in our ranks.
Yeah, and I will give Goody credit here too. I think exactly what he needed was to be dropped earlier in the year. I don't know if that 1 week was what they had planned, but since he came back and then he did his time as the sub, he's been a completely different player. That goal, though, that he missed from pretty much the goal square, was that not a direct two-hand shove in the back? There was a couple of those ones yesterday that I was like, what are we doing here?
Free kick, Bulldogs.
In no way did the umpires lose us the game. We do that all by ourselves. But there was a couple, and then Fritter, I think he was delivering it to someone out on the flank, and he just got two-hand shoved in the back, and it didn't get called. But Fritter, it was the almost game yesterday, wasn't it? Like he really could have been the difference. There was one down the Bulldogs cheer squad end where he snapped on his left foot, and they go through 99% of the time, and he missed completely. That we all looked at each other like, what just happened? How did he miss that? I think a fresh perspective next year. I wonder who sticks around as a forward line coach as well for these guys. That forward line mix, man, that's a huge watch for us next year. And I think Bailey Fritsch is probably still the most talented player in that forward line, but not far behind is Melk, who's still doing some pretty crazy things. But Fritter's come a long, long way since the first couple of rounds this year.
Yeah, I was worried about him, and I think a lot of supporters were thinking that perhaps this is a guy that was starting to check out. He got the rocket, and the rocket has worked because we've seen a vastly improved player in this second half of the year. He's going to be huge for us. I love Fritter. He's one of my favourites. I've been so disappointed with his lack of effort at times over the past 18, 24 months. In a weird way, he sort of epitomises a bit of the drop-off that we've seen from this football club, because when he's up and running, I think he's a huge barometer for this team. And he's a footballer. He doesn't have the biggest frame, but he's just a naturally gifted footballer. So I think it's a huge 2026 in prospect for Bailey Fritsch. And if, again, I'm going to keep reiterating this point, if we can get the best version of him, I think it'll go a long way to us bouncing back. So a player that I'm hoping finishes off with a flurry and goes right to the line. One thing I wanted to speak about, we'll get back to some individuals, but one thing I want to speak about is, and I saw this on First Crack, and David King made the point that we're scoring from defensive half more in the past 6 weeks. And we've got a profile that resembles a team that could potentially put themselves into calculations for a top 8 or final spot if we were able to extrapolate the score line from defensive half over the course of a whole season. So the scoring profile and the makeup is much more in tune with modern footy, which is great to see. And David King was talking about, well, it's pretty crazy that Melbourne have actually started to evolve. And we saw yesterday some unbelievable passages of play through the middle. It was really fun to watch from Melbourne. It was great risk. It was great dare. It was taking it on at all costs at different times. And it worked. And to put up scores from defensive half has been a problem for this team. But we've actually started to do it in the past 6 weeks. And David King was a bit miffed by that because part of him was saying, well, Goody had figured it out because, of course, this started with Simon and now Troy's following it through. And we saw an example of it yesterday again against the Bulldogs. And the reason why I think it's too little too late for Simon is, yeah, we've improved. Ball movement's been good. We were speaking about ball movement earlier in the season as well. There were some shoots of promise, even despite the 0-5 start. You could see that we were trying something different. Now it's started to click. The reason why Simon isn't there, because you cannot legislate for the fade outs that we've had. We had the start of the Gold Coast game. We didn't fire a shot. That was horrific. Bad preparation, mentally not in the game. The messaging coming from the coach and the captain are the last messages that go out. And you can't push it uphill and chase a game like that. The St Kilda result and the way we capitulated, the worst 30 minutes of footy I think I've ever seen from this group of players. Again, another reason why Simon lost his job. And we've seen it throughout the season while he was at the helm. We just had, and I spoke about this on a few shows, just so many 20, 30-minute patches where mentally we looked off, our game looked off. When things weren't going our way and the other team got momentum and they got on top, we got obliterated, Cam. Teams were putting runs of scores against us. We were conceding 4, 5, 6, 7 goal flurries in the blink of an eye. So it isn't the fact that, oh, God, these boys have just started to click. It's starting to work. Oh, Goody had figured it out. Oh, maybe they should have persisted with him. The reason why we're not persisting with him is because the other side of the coin is you can't have the fade outs that we've had. We've been awful in fourth quarters. We've floated in and out of games. We've had too many goalless quarters. And then the other thing is we've lost too many close games, and the best teams win the close games. And I think our ledger is 2 wins, 5 losses in games decided by under 2 goals. And again, that just costs you in the wash-up. So it isn't necessarily the fact that we should have kept this bloke around because we've suddenly just started to score from the back half. I'm sorry. The reason why Simon isn't there is because we've lost far too many close games. We've had way too many goalless quarters. And for me, effort isn't just turning it on and off like a tap. Effort should be consistent. I know you're not going to get the game on your terms forever throughout a game for 4 quarters. That's just the nature of modern footy, and we saw that with West Coast against Adelaide yesterday. But the reality is, as a supporter, watching a team that just falls by the wayside for 20, 30 minutes, and it ended up being the difference in so many games under Goody in the last 2 years, that is the reason why he's not there.
Yeah, you've nailed it, mate. That you can't say it much better. At the end of the day, we're 7-14. 13 of those losses are goodies. You can't account for yesterday, but that's 2 wins more than the Richmond Football Club, who have not had Lawler, Bolter, and Lynch for massive parts of the year. We should be better than we are. The ball movement has been visibly better, and I think we're still held back by a couple of butchers of the ball moving forward, but a big preseason for those guys, and who knows, it could evolve a little bit. But yeah, the D's have certainly evolved in probably the last 18 months, and a lot of that has to do with Goodwin. But yeah, we don't have that killer instinct, do we? We lose another close game yesterday, and the headlines come out quickly that leaders let Melbourne down again, blah blah blah. Man, it's just we used to be just brute force, find a way to win at any cost, and it's almost the opposite now. 2 and 5, I'm not sure of the number myself, but if it's 2 and 5, that's no way to go. And if you flip that, then you're right in the finals mix. So there's a lot that this playing group can still do if they're led in the right way, and I don't think they have been for a while.
No. And then the other thing is what's been lost as well. The players have let Goody down. We haven't spoken about that. The players have let Goody down. But Goody, I think his stubbornness has gotten the better of him. Jai Culley, a good example of a player that should have almost certainly have been in the lineup a lot sooner than what he was. It's too little too late. The Caleb Windsor change into the middle last couple of weeks has been really good and impressive, and I've enjoyed that as well. But also just the mere fact that playing favourites, playing the same players in the middle, those vaunted champions that are so ineffective, they are butchers. It's annoying and frustrating and hard to say that at times, but it's the reality of where we find ourselves as a midfield mix. We just don't dispose of the footy well enough. We turn over the ball in some of the worst areas possible, and that is the big challenge for the next coach coming in, is to try and get the ball into the hands of the best users in the best possible positions and try not to turn over the ball in the worst positions. And the players let Goody down for sure in terms of their execution. But the other reality is Goody put them in those positions. He played them in those positions. And when the responsibility is bestowed upon players who aren't good kicks, well, the end result is you give up stupid scores on turnover. And that's what we've done time and time again. So, yes, the players let him down, but Goodwin let himself down as well, just tactically not making those changes, and we just have ended up seeing the same results. It was quite remarkable yesterday as well, and this is another big thing for new coach to come in and try and fix with this group, but the amount of times that we would turn over the ball in our back half and the Bulldogs would just spread the ground, head out wide, clean skills, hit targets, slice and dice. In the blink of an eye, it went from one end to the other. We're not good at defending in transition. We're not good at defending grass. We're terrible, just simply put, defending when we're running back towards goal. And that's a huge issue that we need to get right. Are we too slow and reactive, and some of the other opposition players get on their bike and they expose us and they know they've got better leg speed than us? I don't know. I probably got the worst vantage point being on that wing on level 1. I'm probably better off sitting up on level 2 or level 3. And I said that to Marky yesterday. I'd love to see the movement up there. And I might actually go and sit up there next week, or at least for the Collingwood game, and just get a better perspective of why we just seem to get sliced up in transition so easily. Is it a mixture of ground ball? Is it a mixture of players not getting behind the ball quick enough and getting into position and trying to set up a wall and try to set up a press? In 2021, we were the kings of that, Cam. We were the kings. We would get into position. It was selfless. Everyone bought in and they went, there's no fucking way you're getting through this brick wall. Now, getting through our grid, getting through us defensively is as easy as I've seen it ever since the Goodwin reign. And I think we speak about the idea of scoring from our back half and also scoring in transition, which is modern footy, the offensive part of it. But my God, we have to get better at defending ball movement and defending transition and defending scores from turnover. And I said it in my preseason podcast with Scotty. That was one of my biggest fears this year, and we still haven't gotten that right. So whoever the new coach is coming in, it was so evident at the ground yesterday. Yes, we want to score more. That's obvious. Yes, we want our players to apply more pressure and create more turnovers so that we can score more. But we really need to learn how to defend as a unit once again. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here having the same conversations next year if the new coach that comes in can't figure that out.
Mate, every time we turn the ball over, you just go, oh, well, there goes a goal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that. You're right. We were the best, the very best. You just couldn't. I think you guys were talking the other day, the numbers behind, we couldn't score. No one could score over 55 points against us for how many years? Yesterday we give up 105. 15-15, by the way. They could have absolutely buried us. And I think it's because we overcommit thinking that things are going to happen in our direction.
Yeah.
And some of the stats do, so we win the hit out count yesterday 52-30, but we lose the clearance count 46-31.
Smacked.
So we're winning the tap out, but it's either we're getting sharked or we don't know what we're doing at the feet of it. So, and I love Jeff White's analysis. He's so good at that. If you haven't gone and watched that, any of the listeners, he's incredible at what he does. Shout out Kalani. But I think we just overcommit forward, and it shows that whenever we do turn the ball over, I think we're trying to recreate a little bit of that orange tsunami that we see from GWS, and that they move the ball, but it's swift handball that hits the target. And we don't hit the target very often, which is kind of important when you're trying to move the ball forward in transition. Man, that one from Rivers yesterday was just a killer. I just looked around when it happened, and some of them had a little bit of a chuckle. Like, what do you do when it's that bad? I just think we overcommit. We all surge forward, and then the inevitable turnover comes because of our poor efficiency with the pill in hand. And it's just so easy going back the other way. Poor T-Mac had watched how many sail over his head yesterday.
So easy. It's so easy. That's a huge thing for Bucks to get right next year. We'll talk about Cozzy and Track just really quickly. I mentioned them off the top. Oh, Cozzy's first quarter. He had the 8 disposals and he looked like he was about to run riot. And similar to Fritter, I think clearly he left some goals out there. Clearly he could have had a bigger impact on the day. Still gets his 22, kicks a goal. You're like, yeah, sure. No worries, Coz. Stats line will say, good day at the office. Should have been a much bigger day for Cozzy. He looked a bit lazy. He looked a bit jaded. And I think the same could be said of Christian Petrarca as well. You could look at the stats line. You could look at his game and look at the numbers and go, oh, it's a pretty good day out for Christian. Nah, that's lazy. If you were there, you would likely have seen what I saw. I saw a player whose body language was a bit off, and I say the same thing for Cozzy again. I genuinely feel, and it's just a theory, of course, at the end of the day, we'll never know, but there were always going to be players that would feel the effects of Goody and him going and him leaving. And Christian's a pretty emotional cat, as we all know. Cozzy's a little bit shy and introverted, as we all know. But I think those two players have spoken consistently of their love of Simon Goodwin. And I just think we saw two players that were carrying that burden and that loss of their head coach yesterday, because the game was there to be won. Let's be frank about that. And if we had a Christian Petrarca at his very best or close to his best, and a Cozzy Pickett who's had some massive days out and will be an All-Australian this year, if those two were in the game at that level, I think we'd be talking about a famous victory against the Bulldogs. And there are always going to be players affected by it. And if that's the case, it's my theory. I'm not surprised if it was these two, because they always spoke about how much they love Goody.
Yeah, I again agree with you, mate. Cozzy mentioned that part of the reason he re-signed is because of the love that Goody's shown him and how much he loves Goody in return. And Track, as you said, is an emotional cat. Yeah, he didn't look that interested. And if you look at the stats, they look good. 23 touches, kicks a goal, has a demon high score involvement of 11. but he just wasn't track at his best. And Cozzy, when he dropped that mark, spun on his left and missed, you were like, oh boy, what are we in for here? Because he kicks them 9 times out of 10. He had 1 goal, 2, and could very easily have had 3 or 4 goals, I thought, yesterday. It really is. They're the only coach they've known. So it'd be like losing a bit of a father figure, a little bit, because he's been the big dog on campus for their entire senior footballing careers. So, the next couple of weeks are big, and you got Marcus' favourite opponents this week in Hawthorn, and they're playing for all the chocolates, and we are playing for 0 of the chocolates this week. And the output that we see from Track and Cos again this week will be really, really interesting, I think, because they're walk-up 22 guys, whereas, your Cullies and your Adams and your Chandlers and Sparrows have got something to prove whether they're going to be on the list. Cos and Track aren't fighting for that. So it's a real interesting balance of how much they're going to give us for the next fortnight.
Definitely. Jake Bowie was good yesterday. He was clean. He was tidy. Christian Salem, very much the same. I thought he was really effective and efficient, particularly with ball in hand. Jake Melksham spoke about before. Again, so crafty. Massive third term from him. The third term itself, it was impressive. Troy Chaplin spoke about it. 7 goals. You should be really proud of that quarter alone. You should be proud of the fight. I really like the vision of him in the rooms talking about how they're treating these 3 games as mini finals in a sense. Going right to the line is, I'm paraphrasing what I think he said. I love that theme. I would love to again see that this week. I want to see a team that's committed for as much of the game as they can be, try to run the Hawks as close as we can, or try and get a famous victory, which would be huge party time for the supporter base and something to hang our hats on. And I want to see the same thing against Collingwood as well. And I think we might get it. I feel like on the evidence of what we saw yesterday against the Bulldogs, hopefully this isn't a group that's checking out. And the last round against Collingwood last year was such a drab, just pulled the plug on this season already. There was thunder and lightning, so it prolonged it for an extra 30, 40 minutes. And you were like, fucking footy gods, just piss off. Just leave us alone. Can we just finally put this season in the bin? So I really do hope that the players actually do channel what Troy said and they do go right to the line, because ruining one of those teams' seasons would feel so good. But we'll see. The last couple of players I wanted to speak about, Cam, Clayton Oliver's one of them, and then we'll end on Jacob Van Rooyen. But I thought Clary, and I think Clary showed some signs in recent weeks of a player that is slowly starting to get back to that version. He's still a long way off from that. I loved his willingness. I loved his mongrel bastard. Talk about the third term. I thought he was a real fire starter for us, the way that he was just throwing himself at the pill. I just love the fierce nature of his play yesterday, which is very Clayton Oliver when it gets willing and it gets tough. And you could tell the Bulldogs are like, holy fuck, like Melbourne are up for this. And Clayton Oliver was one of those players for me. I'm starting to see some signs. I'm starting to see some shoots of positivity about him potentially turning it around. And again, whoever the coach is coming in next year, I expect Clayton Oliver to be with the footy club round 1, 2026. And we've probably spoken about this every 2, 3 or 4 weeks, probably like all the time. Will we ever see the best version of Clayton Oliver again? That Herculean player, one of the best players in the competition. What a great project for a new coach to come in and try and revitalise him and actually get him back to his best. Yesterday, I just started to see a bit of, oh, that's the old class. And if said coach can do that, mate, you talk about players bouncing back next year and turning us into a better team, that would have to be the biggest one, probably along with Petrarca.
Full disclosure with Clayton Oliver, my prized possession might be a number 13 jumper with Adam Uze and Clayton Oliver's signatures on him, and I may or may not have Clary's face tattooed on my arm. But I thought Clary was really good yesterday, and geez, he's still got the I want the ball more than anyone in him. He was on his hands and knees on on countless times. Jesus, what did I swallow?
No, you're getting emotional talking about Clary.
Yeah,
Now
my
you
kid's name's definitely not Oliver. Um, yeah, he was on his hands and knees more often than not. He was the one finding the pill, getting it out to the good ball users. Again, another game where he has 27 touches and 17 of those are handballs. So I think he's really been given that objective of finding his hand more often than his foot, and I like that. If this is the baseline, though, of Clary, then the ceiling's still there, I think. I don't know if we'll get four-time Bluey Truscott winner Clary ever again, but if this is the baseline, it's still a very, very good footballer. By all reports, he's not going anywhere else because essentially no one else wants to pay him $1.3 million or whatever it is until 2030, which is fair enough. But a new coach is, I would really like Nathan Buckley, and it's a midfielder that can show him a couple of things, and he's coached some of the very best in the game. He was himself one of the very best in the game. I think Clary can have a big 2026. I don't think he can have premiership winning, Bluey Truscott winning Clary numbers again, but he does all the work on his body. He does all the work at training. First one there, last one to leave. He's trying all that he can, and maybe a new system's what he needs.
I think I found the tweet that you're talking about. So it's from Lockie, and I think it is a neutral supporter. And he said, Melbourne supporters are bloody loud for a fan base that's infamous for their poor turnout rate. I think that's a bit of a myth as well. They do a great job cheering for their team. I went to the game as a neutral today. He was a neutral, Adrian. You should have kept reading. Expecting poor atmosphere and was really impressed. And I've spoken about that. When we're up and about, yeah, of course we're bloody loud. We don't have as many members as we should. We don't have as many supporters as we should. And I said that earlier in this podcast. We, unfortunately, 65 to 87 or 86, we missed finals for 22, 23 years. And my dad's spoken about this. There's a generation of Melbourne supporters that probably we couldn't generate as a result. Now, yes, it gets passed down from the most nuffy and hardcore of fans, but definitely a lot of kids out there, and also potentially during that low ebb that we experienced as well, 07 to 2013, where we just had a drop-off, people not wanting to go for this football club. But I've said it, the hardcores are legit. And when we're in a game, a big game, and there's things to play for, premiership points to play for, and we're not playing in dead rubbers, or we're not playing in a game where the meaning of it is far less than what it is to the opposition like yesterday. Yeah, we can go bananas. But there was a point during that third quarter where we wanted a bit of blood. We were sensing a victory, and we get up and about. So I'm glad to see that tweet, because it is a genuine fact for me that we can get tribal, we can get ferocious, we can get loud in the stands. And that's actually really nice to see that, because I was impressed with the Melbourne supporters yesterday. Last one, Jacob Van Rooyen. So, Roo, I'm bullish. I'm bullish about his prospects. I think it's a guy that is definitely starting to slowly turn the corner. He is starting to get some confidence back in his game. He's starting to fly at it with purpose. He's not running under the ball as much as he once was. He still does it every now and again. Kicked a goal, had 11 disposals, probably could have hit the scoreboard a little bit more, had the 4 marks. I thought he was good yesterday. I liked his performance. There's some good forward craft in there in the mix where he didn't actually take the grab, but he brought it to ground nicely for his teammates. I think he's come back in, Cam, and he's starting to get a handle for not only the ball and the footy in the air, but I think he's starting to get a handle at the level and what's required and what his role is as a forward. And if there was ever a player that I wanted to have a big finish to the season in this next fortnight, I almost think he'd be my number one player.
Yep. He's got a huge couple of weeks to showcase what he can do for a new coach. I think that's the most true words we've said tonight, new coach. But I think he's done really well in leading higher up the ground and really presenting quite well. He combats really well as the second ruck. I know we all hate him being there, but the stats show that he's actually a really good second ruck. I don't think Penny will ever be able to shun the nickname that she gave him in trampoline hands, but
bad. It's bad, Penny.
Yeah, come on, Penny. She promised us to win here too, so we have to win one of the next two. Matt, Rue has been hit and miss all year, and I think he's been quite good for the last two games. A strong finish to the year should give him and the rest of us a lot of confidence as to what he can do. He's still only 22 years old, and I don't have the numbers in front of me as I'm scrambling here on the side.
Yeah, I can tell. What are you doing, Cam?
David Neitz, I'd love to know how many games he played in the back line before he moved to the forward line, and how many games it takes for a forward to kind of develop into that player that we want him to be. He has got so much time on his side being a 22-year-old key position player. They do take longer. Not everyone is Sam Darcy that can just roll into the game and be a superstar. So have patience with Rui, but it is a huge couple of weeks for him, and against a couple of sides who are playing for everything. If he can, I'd love to ruin Collingwood's top four chances. I'd love to throw a spanner in the mix and send Hawthorn off to play in Canberra or something. It would just be really cool for us to be that club. And Rue has probably been one of the biggest improvers towards the back end of the season, I'd say.
Yep, I agree with that. David Neitz, what a player. 1995, he got an All-Australian Guernsey as well, just remember, in his third year. What a player, honestly. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there because we've got more important things to do, Cam. Far more important things in this review show. We need to actually wrap this one up. We need to jump on another call, bit of deja vu, and we need to jump into the Casey report. But this has been the review show. It was a disappointing loss because all losses are disappointing, and we shouldn't be a side that cops an honourable loss, so to speak. However, we can definitely look at yesterday as a positive for what's to come, hopefully in the future. It might actually mean, honestly, sweet F all. If a new coach comes in and just rips it up, and suddenly there's players that were playing in positions that they're akin to for the last 3 or 4 years under Simon Goodwin, and whoever comes in just throws the magnets around, and all of these discussions that we've had just become completely futile, Cam. But I think that's being a little bit silly. I think the likes of Jai Cully yesterday, I think the likes of Caleb Windsor going through the middle, I think Harvey Langford resting up forward again, a weapon in that role. I think clearly yesterday a negative is the fact we got smashed in clearance and we had pretty much the same names through the middle. So I think if you're objective about the position that we find ourselves in as the new person coming in to take over the reins, then clearly we've got to change things up. But clearly there are things to be happy about. There's things to be upbeat about. Jake Bowie, Judd McPhee, I thought, again, starting to show signs of the player that was highly touted in the preseason, someone that could potentially go into the midfield. We know that Kozzy Pickett will have bigger days. He's had massive days this year. We know that Christian Petrarca might be having a gap year. We know that Clayton Oliver himself might not ever get back to that 4-time Keith Bluey Truscott medalist. But again, he is a player that can be worked with and we can extract more value out of him as well. So, and we didn't even speak about Max Gawn, who just goes on his merry way. He had the 5 Coaches Association of votes, as I said, and just put another stake in the ground and said, well, you're almost going to have to pick 2 ruckmen if you don't pick me, because I'm one of the 2. If you want to go with Broads, that's fine, but you got to have me in the team. And I think he almost solidified it yesterday. If that's the path they go down and they go, you know what, Brody, you're number one, well, Max has got to at least get in there in an interchange role for me because he's been one of the very best players in the competition this year and he is aging like a fine wine. So I'm happy to be positive. I'm happy to be upbeat. And Cam, thank you. And I'll see you on the Casey report in just a tick.